Yes, this mix sounds awesome. Mila, come and have a listen to this. I can't wait to get it to the car. Come on. If you can relate to this scenario, you will know how frustrating this is. Your track sounds amazing in the studio, so you bounce it down, find a way to copy it to your phone to take it to your car, whack on the stereo, only to find it sounds awful. You either can't hear the bass or it's completely muddy and washed out, and some of the high ends are too loud, the vocals get lost in the mix, and everything just sounds wrong. Well, today I'm going to show you how to create a mix that sounds awesome on any set of speakers. From a car to a smartphone to Bluetooth speakers, or even a club and a festival, maybe even a submarine. But before we look at these techniques, let's first look at why this problem arises. So every sound system recreates sound differently, and every listening environment affects how the sound reaches our ears. So as complicated as it sounds, we really need to factor these things in when creating our mixes. And this is exactly why your mix sounds so different in the studio compared to in your car, because your car stereo is enhancing or masking certain frequencies that your studio monitors or headphones aren't. But not only that, if you're listening to music in an acoustically treated environment, like a studio, the sound waves are traveling pretty much straight from the speakers directly to your ears. Whereas in an untreated room or a larger space, they're bouncing off the walls, they're bouncing off the ceiling, with the sound waves partially cancelling each other out or reverberating or echoing. And this is a big problem because, obviously, most people don't listen to music on studio monitors in treated rooms. So now that we know what the problem is, how do we go about fixing it? Well, the standard advice on the internet revolves around two things. One, buy multiple sets of studio monitors, like the Yamaha HS10s or Auratone 5Cs, which focus on the mid-frequencies, so you can constantly switch between them and your main monitors to check your mix works well on both of them. If it does, the chances are it's going to sound good on any system. And the second piece of advice usually given is carefully setting up your room with acoustic panels, diffusers, bass traps, and a ceiling cloud, to make sure that the signal is reaching your ears as cleanly as possible. Now, both of these things do make a huge difference, but you might be thinking to yourself, Will, you devilishly handsome and witty chap, this is all good and well, but I don't have thousands of dollars to spend on multiple monitor systems, and I don't have the space to create a dedicated mixing room. Well, fear not, because throughout most of my DJing and production career, I've been mixing in far from optimal environments, such as planes, cars, hotel rooms, using just a laptop and a pair of headphones. And I've uncovered 5 techniques that have allowed me to create professional quality mixes without any of that other stuff. So, you lucky devils, here they are. 1 is the most powerful tool. Skrillex mixed his breakout track, Nice Sprites and Scary Monsters, using a blown monitor. And he's produced several tracks in the back of a van on the way to gigs. So, how does he manage to do that in such suboptimal environmental settings and still build one of the biggest careers in music production? Well, it's largely down to this one technique, and it's way more important than having a perfectly set up studio or several sets of quality monitors, and that is knowing your system. He was able to mix in that situation because he knew what well-mixed music sounded like on his blown monitors. Now, there's an important second part to this which I'll share in a moment, but it all starts with knowing your system and knowing how other music sounds on it. And that means listening to a lot of music. And if you can make that part of your routine, so much the better. This is exactly what I did with my Sennheiser HD2 headphones, which are DJing headphones, but I spent so many years listening to so many tracks on them, just by walking around listening to them with my iPod, but also by using them when DJing in clubs. I got to really know how these headphones sounded, and that allowed me to mix professional sounding music wherever I was in the world. Now, it does pay to have at least a half decent set of headphones. I really like Sennheisers, but Audio Technica make great ones as well. There are many other brands, but if you budget around $150 and upwards, you should be able to get a really good set of headphones. Now, you can take this one step further by using Sound ID reference as well, and what that does is use EQ to adapt the curve of your particular set of headphones to make it more into a flat response. As I say, it is useful, but it's not essential. The key here is really knowing and listening to a lot of music on the system that you're going to be mixing on. Okay, technique number 2, black and white. Now this is one of the most powerful mixing techniques I've ever learned. It's a way to see if your mix works in black and white as well as color, just like a logo. When you have a logo, you want it to look striking and clear in black and white as well as color, because that means the balance of the shapes within the logo are right, it means the tones are contrasting each other correctly, and then when you translate that into color, it looks amazing. It's exactly the same with music. If we get it sounding great in the audio equivalent of black and white, which is mono, then when we switch to stereo, it's going to sound incredible. Mixing in mono makes it easier for your ears to focus on the frequencies and the volume balance without being distracted by the stereo field. All you need to do is simply add a plugin that can be switched to mono on your master chain and then set up the keyboard shortcut so you can quickly toggle between mono and stereo. It makes balancing levels way easier, and you can also use it in conjunction with the next 3 techniques, and number 5 really ties all of this together. Okay, boom, technique number 3. Now, much like the standard advice we touched upon a bit earlier, checking your mix on multiple systems is essential, even if you don't have multiple pairs of expensive monitors. I found a couple of ways to do this easily and with as little friction as possible, which is really important if we want to help ourselves do this often and frequently. The first is when producing on a laptop, I just unplug my headphones from time to time. The audio instantly switches to the internal speakers, which lack low end and the super high frequencies, so I can check the mix still works on them. Then I can just plug my headphones back in and continue. Now, once again, you have to know your laptop speakers, so that means listening to a lot of music through them. Number 2 is using a plugin called Mix Checker Pro. This is a fantastic plugin as it allows you to simulate different listening environments. You just stick it on your master channel and, much like the mono switch, just create a keyboard shortcut to toggle it on and off. And you can see the different kind of environments that we can mimic here. Now, once again, it's a good idea to listen to lots of different music using this plugin just so you can understand how it should sound. Which brings me on to tip number 4, possibly the most powerful technique out of all of the ones we've covered so far. And this is choosing a map. If we don't know where we're heading, it's very hard to get there. The chance of stumbling across your intended destination is almost impossible, and it's exactly the same with mixing. But what map can we use when it comes to mixing? The answer is reference tracks. That is to say, professionally produced and mixed tracks in the genre that you're producing, which can help guide us create a great mix that translates well across all systems. And even if you do have a perfectly set up room and an amazing set of monitors, reference tracks are still incredibly important. But if you don't have those 2 things, they become essential. Regularly A/B testing between a reference track and your mix is key, but not just by using our ears. Remember, our speakers and environment can't really be trusted, which brings me on to tip number 5, where it all comes together. Let's do this! So this next trick is the absolute be-all and end-all game changer. It will take the guesswork out of mixing, and ironically, it involves not using your ears, and that's using meters to help guide your mix. So if your monitors and headphones change how a mix sounds, visual meters can accurately show you what's happening in the audio of your track, as the meters are applied before the audio leaves your computer and hits the speakers. Not only this, but as you're probably already more than aware, as you produce a track and you listen to it over and over again, our ears lose objectivity. They become fatigued, they just become used to how the mix sounds, and we start to think it sounds good even though it doesn't. So having accurate visual cues and references to help guide us make decisions is absolutely essential, because you can't change what you can't hear or see because you don't know it's there. Now, this isn't to say, of course, that we only rely on our eyes and not our ears. That would be crazy, but it is a great help. So here's how I set it up. So first, I bring in the reference track to our project file by creating an audio channel and then just dragging it in. Now, the meters that I put on the reference track are the same as the meters I put on our master channel, and I route the audio from our reference track to external out rather than to the master channel, so we can apply different effects to each. The next thing I do is I take down the volume of our reference track because they have, of course, been mastered, and if we try and mix our track using this as a reference, we won't be able to get the same loudness, so by dropping it by about 12 decibels, we're going to be comparing apples to apples. Now, you can be more accurate about this by using a loudness meter like this free one here, which I'll link to below this video, and what we're really looking for is to hit -18 LUFS. It doesn't have to be completely accurate, but it's a good rule of thumb. The next meter I use is a spectrum analyzer. I'm just using this spectrum analyzer that comes with the Pro Q3, so we can see the frequency spread, and this is super important. And then the last meter I use is an ozone imager, so we can see the stereo width. So we can reference the volume, the frequency spread, and the stereo width. Now I copy all of those plugins onto our master channel, so we can compare our mix to our reference track the whole way through. For example, if I open up the Pro Q3 on the reference track and the Pro Q3 on my master channel, and let's listen to our track, we can see our frequency spread and we can see our reference track frequency spread. Now I've already mixed this track so we can see they're very similar, but it was only by visually checking it that I could see, oh, I needed a bit more high end, or maybe I needed to take the low end down a bit. And once you've done the mix and you're doing the master, then you can compare the loudness levels and then compare the stereo fields as well. Now for the most important thing. For any of these techniques to work, you have of course got to have your mix sounding decent on at least one system first. That means the balance, the EQ, compression, saturation, reverb, and as you know, that's all easier said than done. However, if you don't get that stuff nailed in right, trying anything from this video will be a complete waste of time. But fear not, for there are 14 techniques that you can start applying today that will make your mixes sound 100% more professional, maybe even 200%. Now each of these 14 techniques has marked a distinct life-changing turning point in my music career, and had I known them sooner would literally have saved me years, maybe even decades. Yeah, I am that old. As I said, each of these 14 techniques has had a life-changing impact on my career, from winning my first remix competition to getting my first manager to getting my first paid remix work. So I've compiled them right here, and if you implement all 14 of them, I guarantee that your mixes will be sounding cleaner, louder, more defined and more cohesive than ever before, and you'll never go back to mixing the same way again. So if that sounds good to you, thank you so much for watching. Hit that thumbnail and I will catch you over at that next video.